guy back in front. Nobody could touch him. And it goes that way. All right, we have to pick chase drivers right now and some other stuff for the second half of the season. So let's just say we agree that Gordon, Stewart, Johnson, Kurt Busch all make it.
Yes.
Okay. Hamlin, Edwards, Newman, I think are shoo-ins.
Yep.
Also.
That's the order.
All right. So after that, I think we should go separate here because I think this is where you see some differences. So there's 5 spots left, Chris. Who's left on your list?
Okay. I have Kyle Busch in for sure.
Okay.
I have Mark Martin in for sure.
Okay.
I have Casey Kane in for sure. I'll add that. And then the last two get a little for me, but I have JPM in, and I have Greg Biffle in, and I have Matt Kenseth missing it for the first time ever.
I have Casey Kane. I'm very tentative about that because every year Casey Kane at one point or another looks like a shoe-in,
and fails. Yeah.
There's still a lot of time for him to fail for us. Kyle Busch is going to get in. Not concerned about him. Not concerned about Mark Martin. Greg Biffle, I think, will rebound. He's not in right now, but I think he'll rebound. I think Matt Kenseth will squeak by, and here's why. Juan Pablo Montoya does not have a top 5, and if he doesn't get one, he's not making the chase. Something will happen.
If he finishes in the top 10 here on out.
But he won't because he doesn't have that speed because he's not getting top 5s. That shows you he doesn't have that speed. That's why. He won't if he doesn't get one. Now, if he gets one, at least, I'll be like, okay, I can see it now. I can see it coming together. And if he gets in the top 5, that should not be allowed. I mean, that's worse than not having to win. I can understand that. If you got 10 top 10s and couldn't get a win, I understand that. If you don't get top 5, you don't deserve to be in the game, man. You don't deserve to have a shot at the championship. It's almost like, you make it's like top 12 in points as long as you have a top 5. I think that's terrible that somebody can make the chase without top 5, personally.
I think it's interesting to me. You've noted that a lot recently, and I can tell that it's really bugging you. I'm just kind of like, it's the way they've made the chase. When you have 12 drivers, that something like that could happen. You're going to get mediocre drivers in there.
That has never happened before.
Well,
did happen the last 2 years.
If he gets 13, okay. What are there? 10 races left before the chase? 8, whatever. There's 8. 9.
Yeah, there's 8.
If even half of those, he finishes 6th to 10th. That's 13 top 10s this year for him, I believe. I think he has 9. So let's say he gets 4 more. That's 13. That's half the races that he finished in the top 10. I guarantee you that'll make the chase. Should it? I'm not going to.
I don't like that, and I don't. Well, I'm not gonna I really don't think so. And I think, knowing him and knowing that team,
consistency prevails over a few top 5s and finishing 5th or
knowing
40th.
Knowing that team, they will have issues between now and the chase too. I guarantee it.
They
will probably blow a motor sometime because it's Earnhardt Ganassi Racing. And trust me, watching Junior run for that team 2 years ago, when he had 10 engine failures, they're going to blow a motor. Juan Pablo Montoya, I mean, you talking about Kyle Busch's maturity? Same thing with Montoya.
Oh yeah,
he's just as likely to get into a situation where he causes all kinds of trouble.
I think that finishing 6th to 10th for 6 races will win out over finishing in the top 5 twice and finishing 40th.
I flat out refuse to believe in the real world, and we're not talking hypotheticals here. We're talking about real world, that somebody can make the chase without top 5. That being said, Watkins Glen's on the schedule. He can finish 4th there. If he finishes 4th there, okay, he's got top 5. I believe it now. I believe him as a chase driver. Simple. That's very simple for me. He has to show me that he has that speed sometime between now and then, or it's travesty, and I flat out refuse to believe that he's actually going to do it.
I really hope he does.
Of course you do, because you just like being antagonistic for the sake
No,
of being
I just think
antagonistic.
I don't know why you're. I mean, I agree. I'm not arguing whether he should be in the chase or not, but I think that it's possible, and I'm not going to refuse to acknowledge
you live in the world of hypotheticals, where the hypothetical world, a guy can win the championship without.
Consistency always wins.
No. Let me finish. You live in the world where, hypothetically speaking, somebody can win the championship without winning a race, but that's never going to actually happen. In reality, that will never happen because there's always going to be somebody who's going to win 6 or 7, and that's going to be the difference because when you finish first and the other guy finishes 13th, you make 60 points up on him.
How is it hypothetical, though, if he's halfway through the season, has run top 10, and is slowly moving up the points?
Because we're not there yet, and it hasn't happened yet. So hypothetically speaking, he can make the chase.
Well, the whole thing we've just done is hypothetical.
Right.
Jeff Gordon can miss the chase.
Hypothetically speaking, but he's not going to. In reality, he's not going to.
So I don't understand how you could say a driver 9th in points.
Who's 9th in points with what? 40 points on 13th?
Well, 8th place doesn't have many points on 13th.
Who's in 13th? If Biffle wins the race and he finishes 9th, he'll be in 13th and Biffle will be in 9th.
But what I'm saying, the problem with Biffle is there's been weeks where he just hasn't shown up and has finished 30th.
And there's weeks where Montoya hasn't shown up and finished 30th. He's just only got 9 top 10s, and he doesn't have a single top 5. And how many of those races were like, I finished 9th, that's a top 10? To me, that's barely legitimate.
And this is where it would go back to the argument of, am I disagreeing with you? No, it's weird to me to think, well, you finished 6th to 10th for 12 races. That's all you got, and you made the chase. And in theory, because the chase has a shot at the championship, I agree with you there. But that's why I think either it should be back to 10 drivers, because when you have 10 drivers, at least you've got, quote, more legit drivers. I'm using that term loosely. I agree with you, but that's what's going to happen when you have 12 drivers. Eventually, as in any sport, you'll get that weird year where you'll have somebody that finishes 500 that makes the champion or makes the playoffs or something like that. And this, if he does, with let's say 10 top 10s, 50, or 11 top 10s with no top 5s, that is to me, in my mind, my weird mind, the equivalent of finishing 81 and 81 and making the playoffs.
I kind of see the point, but I really don't think it can happen. I think there's too many. This year is a weird year because you have guys who are not running very well in 10th in points.
You said it, and I'm going to steal something that you said. This is a weird year where it's going to be the few guys that like stumble into the chase. It's kind of like, like they no shot, but they're going to stumble.
Well, and every year there's a few guys that are I mean, it's always happens. There's always the guy. It's like he's not a legitimate championship contender, but he's in the playoff. Yeah. Or whatever.
But no, I
refuse to believe that can happen. To me, that it's unjust and unright, and I just refuse to believe in that reality that can actually happen.
And I do agree
until it actually happens. But right now, it's a hypothetical, just like the idea of a driver win the championship without winning a race.
Yeah.
That's a hypothetical. I don't believe that it can actually happen.
And I do agree. I do agree with the one thing you said about if Biffle wins and Montoya finishes 9th, obviously first is more points. Yes, the only thing...
It's not just more. It's a lot more because between 1st and 5th, the difference between each position is 5 points. When you get down to like 13th, it becomes 3.
My only thing with that is if we take a 2-race sample, okay, Biffle wins race A, Montoya finishes 9th. In race B, Biffle doesn't show up, finishes 30th, Montoya finishes 9th. Obviously, Montoya is going to have the more points.
Yeah, obviously. It's just... Honestly, I believe that Chicagoland was an aberration for Biffle, for one. And two, it's just... I don't see it. I just don't see it. And I think it's crap that it could happen.
It is very odd. It reminds me to a lesser extent of Jimmy Johnson's rookie year, the whole, remember, 6 top 5s, 24 top 10s. I mean, that's it's one of those weird, it's Clint Boyer-esque. Just not, Clint Boyer had some. He had, going into the chase last year, he probably had 4 or 5 at least. So I can see what you're saying. It'll be interesting. I just cannot imagine having a giant goose egg in that top 5 column and making the playoffs.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just almost think that I just can't see it happening. I don't see how that can happen. And that's the thing, though.
I think to say there's a rule about it, I
almost am convinced that he will get a couple top 5s between now and September. But since he doesn't right now, I refuse to believe that he's a legitimate chase contender.
Yeah, but the whole
I refuse to give him that respect.
The whole making a rule about having it, that's a little extreme.
I don't think so. You have to perform.
Well, we're going to make a rule for they seem to make a knee-jerk rule for everything.
You have to be a legitimate contender to make the chase. It has to be legitimate.
Yeah, but
what's wrong with that?
One top 5 doesn't make you legit.
Top 5. Okay, fine. We'll make it 3 or 4. We'll make it so it's more legitimate then.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that whole. Okay, Casey Kane almost missed the chase. Now we're going to extend it. Now we're going to reseed it.
That's not what I said.
Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. missed the chase. Now we're going to make it 12 drivers. I don't agree with all that.
Apples and oranges, love. Apples and oranges. I think you're comparing 2 different things. I'm suggesting here. I'm just suggesting is that your berth would be stripped of you if you haven't performed up to the stuff. Almost like take like Richard Petty and like Richard Childress and Junior Johnson, somebody else, and have them be this advisory board that basically can make a decision anytime. You're not actually up to snuff. This is not helping the sport if you can do whatever, even though it's a statistical loophole.
But it's all relative to the competition around you. If he's 10th in points after
if he doesn't have a top 5, you cannot convince me that he is better than Greg Biffle. You will never convince me of that.
Evidently, he was more consistent, which earned him a playoff
consistency and quality are not the same thing.
But the point system is set up to reward consistency. If he finishes,
and I have never agreed with that.
Well, then, now we're getting into another different discussion. I mean, that's why they made the chase, was to kind of negate some of that consistency. But it's just
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying is, honestly, who wins the race should get 50 points more than who gets second, because this is a sport about winning the races.
And it should be. And yeah, I agree with you. And you have seen in years past not even necessarily before the chase. I mean, during the chase, you've seen the whole, I am in second. You know what? And you've heard them say on the radio, I am fine with second for the points. And that is kind of like, really? So I can see, I agree with